Okay,
Hey,
this
so we're
is
back.
This is the
The end.
end. We are almost there.
Yeah. It's still gonna take a while, but yeah, sure, we're almost there.
I want some
Last card.
instant gratifications. I
Yeah.
want to work with CSS to
CSS,
make
yeah.
things prettier. What do you think would make things prettier?
Removing those boxes, they look ugly.
These boxes?
No, I mean the borders of the to-do boxes.
Oh, these outlines.
Yes, outlines. I don't even know why we have bullet points.
Because this is a
I
list.
know it's a list, but like you don't see bullet points in
Yeah,
to-do
well,
applications.
You don't. That is true. So let's go to our main resources public index.html where we are writing our CSS. It's down here, and we can say that, I think we have to say that list items, list style,
Yeah, I think that might be
none. I think that will do it. And we are,
Maybe.
as always, we have to refresh,
yeah.
and then come to the browser and reload. So
That does that.
yeah,
Fairly straightforward.
yes, the bullet points are gone, but there is still some space left for them, which makes the whole thing misaligned with the title. So that's easy to fix, though.
Yeah.
Let's do this in the browser.
Also, can we, like, I know we're going to get rid of outlines for the to-do items, but the spacing between the checkboxes and let's say A in the second item is it looks too close.
Okay.
Primarily because I'm used to reminders apps having like slightly spaced orientations.
Okay, we do that. We can do that. But first I want to get rid of this space, and I want to do this using Chrome to experiment with
It's
the
our
thing
development
directly.
console after all.
Yeah. So here we have the whole list of items.
Yeah.
And I believe that it will show here that there's some padding on the left.
Yeah.
40 pixels. That comes with the browser.
Yeah.
We didn't have to say that we wanted 40 pixels. In fact, we don't want 40 pixels there. So we can say padding 0.
I think
and that will get rid of that space. Yeah, we can also be more specific and say padding left. Doesn't really matter because the rest was already 0.
Yeah.
So I'll say just padding 0 if you don't mind.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. And of course,
So
if I refresh the page, let me just show this. If I refresh the page,
it's gone again.
It goes back.
Yeah.
So we have to make this change in the code to make it last. So in the list, we don't want any padding.
0.
And in the item, we don't want any bullet.
Yes.
And that brings us to the state that we had when we were manipulating directly in the browser, saying padding 0. Okay. I will not refresh the browser just yet. Let's try to tackle the next thing, which is the border around the inputs.
Yep.
So here we can say in this input,
that's it, yeah.
That is a long list of attributes, and this seems to be baked in. So we can say border none, or maybe 0. Yeah, border none. That works.
Yep. Yeah.
Just for the first one.
Yeah.
But when we make this in the real code here, we'll have some input.
Work for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So here it's applying only to the input we selected.
With particular, yeah.
We can see the style right here in line. But then when we pull this into the style in the header, which is what is happening here in this style type.
It applies it to all, like it goes through like a for each loop.
Yeah, it cascades.
Yeah.
That's why it's called CSS.
Yeah.
Cascading style sheets, well, it cascades.
I never actually thought of logic behind that.
It cascades through all the inputs. But there is not only that, there is also this outline in blue when we select.
Yeah, that also looks bad.
So you want to get rid of that? We can. It's called an outline, and we can say that we don't want one. Now it's gone.
See, that looks much better.
All right, so we can say that we don't want any border and we don't want any outline.
Yeah, that's it.
Fair. Next, you said that the spacing was not good.
Yeah, between the checkbox and the actual text, start of the text.
So you want more space there?
Yes.
So I guess we can say just margin left.
Yeah, I think that might do. Yeah, maybe.
Like 10 pixels?
Yeah, try. Yeah, looks like it works.
Okay, so here we don't want to apply this to any input. In this case, we only want to apply to the inputs that are text.
Yep.
We don't want to apply to the inputs that are checkboxes. If we just did this for all inputs, the checkbox would have a margin left of 10 pixels.
That's wrong.
So here we want something specific for
text.
type text.
Okay, that way.
And then we can say margin left of 10 pixels.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Try refreshing and we'll see. I want to see all of it together.
Okay.
That looks fine. Maybe slightly bigger text.
Slightly bigger text, you say. Currently, the text size is...
I can't even see.
It may not be here.
Visible, a font for 11 pixels. I saw it.
Perfect.
Yes.
Excellent. So 11 pixels. How
I
big
don't know,
do you
maybe
want this
just
to be?
12 or 13 might work.
Text sizes adjust?
No, font size. Yeah, font size. Try. I don't know. That's okay. Can you try 13? 13.
13?
13.
Okay, whatever makes you happy. So font size of 13 pixels.
Yeah. Clear. So
also, one thing that I don't like is that these are too close to one another.
Yeah.
It also almost seems like the checkboxes go together and the list items still go together, which is not the case.
Yeah.
The checkbox goes with the to-do item.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can do here is just say that maybe the whole line item could have I don't know if this is going to work, but I believe that if we put a line height of like 20 pixels, it will make things wider.
Yeah, it does, apparently.
Maybe 25? 25 makes me happy.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we can say that the list items have a line height of 25 pixels.
Yeah.
And another thing is that this boxes, this is slow because it's updating on the server every time. But these boxes are rather small. You see?
Oh, right, yeah, it's actually pretty small.
It is pretty small. So we could make it wider. Let's see. Let's select one, and we can see the outline in blue.
How big it's actually.
The orange part is the margin.
Yeah, the margin, yeah.
The margin. The blue part is how wide the actual box is.
Yeah.
And we want to make it wider, which is simple to do. We can just say or maybe even the maxed width. We saw this before when we put a maxed width for the thing. So if you have a browser that is smaller, then we won't be forcing the width. So we can say max width. But this
is fine.
This is not going to work though.
Why?
Because if the width is like it is, like let's say that this is 200 and we want it to be 500. Well, the max width will be 500. Okay, 200 is less than 500, so it won't change anything. In fact, it just didn't. It didn't show. Like you can see, nothing changed. If I change this to max, from max to just width.
Yeah. And then it forces everything to be 500.
And then and then it's too wide even. Maybe we want like 400, I guess.
Still too wide. 300. Yeah.
Another thing we can do is instead of using a pixel count, we can use a percentage.
Yeah,
so we can have like 90%.
Yeah.
Which seems to be wide enough for me.
Yeah.
But then it's not fixed because the container is a maxed width. So let's go back to the container. The container is this whole body, I suppose.
Yes, that.
And the body has a maxed width of 400. So the body will stretch.
Yeah.
And then the input will
change accordingly. 90% of that container.
Exactly.
That works, I think.
So now we want the text input to be width of 90%. This still isn't perfect, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
And also, if you let's see if you like this. I believe this will look nicer. Instead of having no margins at all, it could be nice to have here a border, or no border at all, I should say. Instead of having a no border at all, it could have a border bottom.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. Some like
solid black,
horizontal.
Maybe like some shade of gray.
Gray, yeah. Black seems to. Something like light to, something on that edge. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, it went back. Maybe I should press enter.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's a
now this is a bad way to define gray. It's like black put transparent.
Yeah.
I don't want it that way. So
it.
So I'll put the transparency back, and I'll do it like this. This looks better.
Okay. It.
You seem to be annoyed.
No, It looked yellow for a second.
Oh, it looked because I was hovering
Thank God,
over the thing, and then it was showing me what the border
selected,
was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That can't be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have the border, and I don't think I want to touch this any further. I think this looks good.
This is good. This is good for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the CSS for a moment. Just reread everything we wrote and see if we like it. So the body
these were there at the start though.
Yeah, I know. And I am now reviewing and refactoring.
Point.
So the body has a max width of 400 and it's centralized.
Yes.
The fonts are the system fonts, whatever that system may be. And we said that we were only supporting Chrome. So in theory, we only need this guy.
But
But I'm supporting Chrome in any operating system. So I also need this
Linux
other
or
guys.
Mac or anything,
Yeah, and
I
also
see Mac stuff anyways.
This is for Safari and I believe Firefox, I don't know. So this is the plus button on the top, the plus button at the bottom. I'm not going to change that. Then we removed the padding from the list.
Then we removed the bullet points first and increased the line height of the entire thing so that it looks clearer.
This border and outline thing are really just for the texts, are not for the checkboxes. It happens that these attributes don't change anything about the checkboxes, but I think it's better to do it this way.
Have it here, fair. It's confusing if you read it the other way around.
And the way I like to do this is from the inside out. So the inside of the box is 90%. And then we have some padding, which we are not using in this case. Oh, it's also the contents of the box.
Should be before width.
And then it's just a matter of order, and I like to think of things from the inside out. So it starts with the contents of the box, and then some padding, which in this case we don't have. Oh, in fact, instead of just making this with fingers, I can show you this. So it starts with the content, and then some padding, and then some border, and then some margin. So we have here border, and then
we don't have
again
padding.
Border, and then outline,
and then margin.
And then margin. Yeah, we don't have any padding.
Have a padding.
And this doesn't show. We don't have any padding, and this doesn't show the outline.
Yep.
But we disabled it right next to the border. So I think this looks perfect.
Yeah.
There's nothing else I would like to change about this.
That's a good enough.
So I'll commit this. Improve.
Are you on a branch?
And fill. We are on the refactoring branch. We have been since the previous session.
Okay.
And with that, I am happy to mark this as done.
Yes.
Also, since we are here, I guess we can jump ahead and extract the CSS. We don't extract the JavaScript.
Actually, we can do CSS.
Let's just extract the CSS because it's simple to do. We have to come here to public, create a new file that will be style sheet. And we'll call this what? Styles.css?
Yeah. Okay. Isn't that standard?
Some people call it main.css.
Really? Not seen that.
Yeah. It happens. Then we paste everything in here.
Yeah, that's your CSS file.
We may even put some new lines
to make it clearer.
Yeah.
More readable.
I think this looks better. And then we have to import this
into your index.html.
Yeah. And in a previous episode, we tried to import normalize, and we learned that the way to do this is with a link tag. Yeah. So link CSS, style, CSS. And then we can restart the server, refresh on the browser, and see that nothing has changed.
See?
All the same.
Yeah.
So I won't mark this as done because we only extracted the CSS.
How about you make it into two things?
We can do that.
I think that's a better idea.
All right. Let's commit what we did just now.
Extract CSS.
And with that, we are not touching CSS any longer.
Yeah. We're done with this. Are you pushing?
I am pushing to that branch.
Fair. Doesn't change anything. So.
Yeah, all right. So now, do you want to start the next task right now, or do you want to wait until the next session?
We have time.
All right, so let's start
extracting things
from the server. Switching gears and saying goodbye to CSS for the rest of this series.
Done, yeah.
Okay.
We did enough, to be fair. It's not like we didn't do anything.
Yeah, and we showed some interesting things in CSS, like how to do the centralized body using margin auto.
Yeah, how to use percentages, like using scale, basically, instead of having like a fixed number to devise it.
Addressing responsiveness, different browsers with different sizes. So I think this is all good. All right, so here on the server, we have to extract a controller and database stuff. I think I would like to start with the database stuff.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Oh yeah, databases should be more straightforward versus controller, like just extracting controllers for different things. So I think we can do that.
Yeah, we can do it in either order, I believe. So which one do you prefer?
I can see it being easier for databases, that's why.
Okay, all right then. So let's see what we are doing with the database. Well, first off, we are creating a connection.
Yes.
We are executing some statements and closing them.
Yep.
And we are creating statements, of course.
Yeah. All of these work in the same, like basic.
And we are closing connections. And in all API endpoints, we have some query. What I would like to see is the concern of working with a database separate from the concern of handling API endpoints. So I think we should extract this into its own class. Now, whether you want to do this is debatable, because some people would prefer to see the whole story in one file. Yeah. And if your story is short enough, I think
it works. Yeah, if it's like if it's not a lot, it works. But when you start working with large code bases, it becomes a problem. There's only enough you can scroll.
Yeah. And this looks like spaghetti, right? You go from one concern to another and then back.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think it's better if we extract this into its own class, and I would like to have a whole package for these kinds of classes. We have a package here for models, that is the classes that have to do with the business logic.
Yeah, exactly. Data structure logic.
Yeah, and now I want another package just for this. So let's create a new package, and we have to say what the package name is. Now it's time to introduce a name. Well, the name I like for this is the name repository.
For databases, yes.
It has nothing to do with the repository that we have in Git.
Yeah, different concepts.
Completely different name. Yep. But there is this name that people use for repository.
Repository technically means storage of something, which is what a database is.
Yeah.
So, which is why it is logical that you call it a repository.
Yeah, it's like a repository of items, and then we can query the repository to fetch items.
Yeah, different things to serve your API and figure stuff out like that.
Yeah, or we can tell the repository that we want to create a new item, that sort of thing. So we call this repositories.
Yeah.
Plural because modules was plural.
Yeah.
And we create a new Java class that I will call the item repository or items repository.
Items repository.
Items?
Yep.
Okay. Now, we have to put some things here.
In here, yeah.
The first thing is I want to be able to connect to the database and do stuff with the database. So I need some connection. I still think that the responsibility of creating the connection belongs to the server. That is because the same connection may be used
for everything. Yep.
The same connection may be used for multiple repositories. I wouldn't want to have one connection per repository.
Oh, right.
So if besides the items repository,
we had something else also.
You had the users repository and the to-do lists repository and so on and so forth. I would like the same database to be used by all of them.
Yep.
So and they may create different statements, but they share a connection. So I would like to have the connection as something that is passed to the repository. If you want a fancy name for this, this is called dependency injection.
Yeah, it is a fancy name.
It is a fancy name. And that is because we have a connection, which is a dependency of the repository. The repository depends on the connection to work.
Yeah.
And we are injecting, we are passing that as an argument to the repository.
Yeah.
So now let's create an attribute. And the way we do that is by saying private
connection.
What is the type of this? I don't even know.
I don't think that's the way to know.
Yeah, connection. So this is a connection. And we'll call it connection.
Yeah.
And it will be initially empty. And in the constructor, import class from SQL. Perfect. Yes. And we'll also create here a constructor, command N constructor for this
connection. Yes.
So now to create a repository, you have to pass in the connection.
Yep.
Perfect.
I think that's a good enough assumption.
And then here we create the connection. We can also create an items repository.
Yeah. Sorry.
Items repository. New items repository, passing in the connection.
Yeah. You have to import it. Did you?
I believe that IntelliJ did that for me. It is right there.
Yep.
Okay, now we have the items repository. Let's start pulling things out of here and into the repository. Yep. Starting with the creation of the table, maybe?
Yeah.
How does that sound?
I think that's the first step for anything. If you don't have tables, how are you going to do it?
Yep. So I think that as you create a repository, it will try to create the table.
No.
Why not?
That is wrong.
Why?
Let me think.
I mean, remember...
Oh, yeah. Repositories are for particular items, right? In the sense that particular types of objects. So as soon as a repository for that type of object is created, there should be a table in the database for that type of object.
Yeah, okay. I believe there is a mapping between the items table in the database and the items repository class.
Okay.
This correspondence is signaled by this. I mean, why not? Add exception. Okay. So now
I am thinking, but then you have items repository there.
Yes.
And it will create a table already, even though the server has not started.
Well, that's not a problem, really. As long as we are closing the connection when the server stopped, it doesn't really matter if we wait for the server to start to create the table. I know we went over this on a previous episode trying to make this right, but I believe this is equally right. We are creating the table.
How about when you start a server, you create the repository?
The problem with doing that is that we want this items repository
to
variable.
Be a public,
Right. We want this items repository variable
to be accessible for other methods.
Yeah, we want this items repository variable to be available from within here, for instance.
Yep.
So if we created this variable from within here, it wouldn't be available here.
I have a complicated suggestion.
Okay.
New function in items repository. And in event server starting, you call that function.
That would work as well, but then you have to remember to call that function anytime you create a new repository in your project, as opposed to following this pattern, which will just work. When you create a repository, you have a table to work with it. Yeah, there is another pattern. I just don't remember what it is, but there is another pattern for if you create an object, it should start working. You shouldn't have to call yet another thing to initialize the object. The constructor should initialize it. And I suppose that we can claim that creating the table is part of initializing the repository.
Can you go back to server or Java? And I'm just spitballing here. So what you do is you do var items repository : okay, event server starting, items repository equal to new items repository.
Yeah, that doesn't work because you cannot change the meaning of a variable outside its lambda.
Oh, right.
We saw this before, like 15 episodes ago.
Yep.
Yeah, so with that, I think we need to wrap up.
For this, we'll go ahead with the rest.
In the next one, we will extract these functionalities into the repository.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see how that goes. Maybe we will have to backtrack in some decisions we made here, but that seems to be good enough for now.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
See you on the next one.
Yeah.